going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the other day, Embark went ahead and dropped a brand new update for Arc Raiders, and it wasn't the worst thing in the world, I'll be honest with you guys, but it has kind of split the community in half, and a lot of people are a little sad about this recent update. Again, as I stated, it's not all bad. There's some good things in here, but at the same time, there are some negatives that are really making people a little down bad at the moment. But, ladies and gentlemen, of course, before we go and dive on deep, if you guys are interested in more content like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. Post twice here, once at 8 a.m. Eastern Time and a second time at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And also, if you guys are interested in any of my live streams, I do stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, if you guys are interested, got a link to that channel down in the description of this video. Now, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, when it comes down to the update, it's not completely massive. I think a lot of people are expecting like a huge list of patch notes, but I genuinely think that Embark is indeed trying to follow the weekly, update pattern that they're also doing with the finals. So, of course, if they're going to be doing weekly updates, they're not going to be as massive as, a studio who might wait 2, 3, 4 weeks to get an update out, and then it's packed with so many different QOL, changes. No, and so it's not like the most massive thing in the world, but there are some pretty big changes here that, again, as I stated, some people might like, and others are probably going to be pretty disappointed in. Of course, as I stated, there's a decent amount of QOL changes. They did a lot of adjustments to the maps, people falling through surfaces, terrain changes to make it easier to run up and down hills. Also, when it comes down to the exploit being able to use a barricade to get into key rooms, apparently that has been patched. I don't know if it's going to be true or not, because I think they patched it a little bit last time, and players were still able to do it. So let me know down in the comment section if you see anybody exploiting still within these key rooms. And also, they only said with the barricade, so I don't know if you could still exploit it by running it into a player, because that's another method, just having a player run at the wall and then you run into their back and it pushes them into the room. So hopefully that was fixed alongside the barricade exploit, because it's kind of the same method. Only time will tell. They made a lot of different changes to, some audio and movement. Again, they did some decent changes here. But there's two beefy boys in this update that, as I stated, left the community kind of split. I'm going to start off with the positive one, in my personal opinion. The Venator. As you guys already know, the Venator pistol is ridiculous in Arc Raiders, and there was absolutely no reason in the world to run anything else. It would mop the floor with anybody. Even if you're up close and personal, I've had moments where I have a Toro shotgun absolutely leveled up to the max, tons of amazing attachments, point blank, I'm telling you, and I get into an engagement with the Venator, and I get melted. It seems like it might have been, desync, the netcode, so on and so forth, but it feels like I get melted in like 3 bullets, whereas I put 2 pumps into this individual, and nothing ever happens. Trust me, the Venator was absolutely broken. Even for me myself, I felt like I was at a disadvantage not rocking this thing. But after the update, the main change that they made to this thing is the fact that it has a slower fire rate, which I'm actually happy about, because I was worried they're going to destroy this pistol by either, destroying the damage or, destroying another value of this weapon that would, absolutely make it useless. But changing the fire rate, at least to me personally, is perfection for the Venator, because I'm going to tell you right now, medium range is not really where I'm complaining about this thing. And honestly, I would still prefer using the anvil, but I feel like the Venator shouldn't be able to mop people up close so easily. And the only reason it could mop people up close is because of, again, the damage that it has, paired with how fast you could trigger finger this thing. I mean, if I just spam my mouse button, this thing will almost, go like fully auto at that point. And with the damage that it has going almost fully auto, it is absolutely busted. So changing the fire rate, to me personally, I thought was great. And after I tried it out, which you could see in this gameplay here, I'm going to be real, I can't kill people as fast. Like, I'm almost getting killed in a lot of engagements, because I'm approaching the engagements like I have the previous, pre-nerfed Venator. And every single time I try to spam it, it starts to lock up a little bit, and I don't get as many shots out, which allows anybody else to, kind of counter me. Now, I will say it's not the end of the world, because if you learn the pacing of the Venator, it's not too big of an issue. You could still fire it pretty quickly. It only starts to lock up a little bit when you start spamming your trigger finger. But that's good as well, because when you're in the middle of the gunfight, not many people are going to be thinking, oh, I need to tap it at this pacing. A lot of people just, again, mag dump, start spamming. They're nervous. This game is intense. It leaves you on edge all the time. So it's an extra skill gap to the Venator. If you want it to be a little quicker than what it is. You have to, learn how to be able to tap fire it perfectly while in the heat of engagements as well. But even if you learn how to tap fire it, you'll still probably want to pepper them a bit with a heavy weapon like an anvil or a pharaoh or anything, honestly, just to get some, of the health off. Or if you just want to stick to the Venator, just don't push like a moron all the time anymore. As I stated, I could ego anybody with this game before they nerfed it. Absolutely anyone, and come out on top, especially if they didn't have Venator themselves. Now, I have to actually play my cover and actually, play correctly. And that is exactly how it should be. Now, after this nerf, I'll be honest, I don't know what the next meta is going to be within this game, quote-unquote meta. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about that. What do you guys think is going to be the next set of weapons that are really going to take over? Personally, I still think the anvil is just going to be on top. I still think the anvil is just absolutely insane. Even up close and personal, I've been able to get some amazing gunfights going on here if your accuracy is good enough. It's literally the Pharaoh, but you can shoot a little bit faster. It's either that or the Renegade. The Renegade, I think, is going to really start to shine a bit more. It already was shining before, but as I stated, the Venator was just so ridiculous that everyone just kind of ignored it. But I really do think that the Renegade, at least for blue weapons, I'm not talking about the higher tier weapons, although the higher tier weapons aren't that crazy compared to some of the blue weapons. I feel like everybody prefers the blue stuff over the pinks and all that stuff, and even the golds, so on and so forth, the yellows, whatever you want to call them. But I think that Renegade is going to come to the top. The damage on that thing, the fire rate on it, it's very solid. But ladies and gentlemen, overall, this is probably the best part about this update right now is the Venator nerf, because it was really taking over lobbies and it became pretty obnoxious, as I stated, to the point where you felt like it was necessary to run it. Or not necessary, sorry, it was mandatory to run it, because if you didn't run it, you were probably going to die if you ran into someone who was using one. So I'm very glad they adjusted this. I'm still going to give it a little bit more playtime because I don't necessarily know if it completely is fixed, because I only got, a day's worth of time in, and not even a full day, right? Only like, 3-4 hours. But in that play session of nonstop using it, as I stated, it still felt good, but I had to definitely change up my playstyle, and I couldn't be as stupidly aggro and just mindlessly push everything. I had to be a bit more strategic, which, again, is what the PvP in this game should be all about. But ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and talk about the negative that happened within this overall update. As I stated, it's not all butterflies, sunshine, rainbows, flowers, so on and so forth. Not even close, because the hole cracker also caught a little bit of a nerf as well. Well, technically explosives across the board when it comes to taking down arc. Now, small arc isn't going to be affected, but the big boys like the Bastion and, I guess all the massive ones like the Matriarch, the Queen, all that stuff, it's going to be a little bit harder to take them down, especially when it comes down to the hole cracker. They stated that they noticed that the hole cracker, and I guess a lot of other explosives, they have a pretty massive blast radius, which would take down more parts than just one. So, if you hit it in a certain area, it could obliterate maybe 3-4 different parts instead of one singular part. So they toned it back to make sure the hole cracker is kind of like it's a precision weapon almost at this point, ladies and gentlemen. It's a precision weapon. You have to kind of nail exactly where you want to hit. So if you really want to hit a limb or something like that, you have to specifically hit on that limb where you want to go. Or if you want to hit, the weak spot, you have to hit exactly there. You can't hit in the general area. You can't hit around it and do some massive damage with the explosive. You have to be very pinpoint accurate. Now, I've seen some people say some positive stuff about this, and I can kind of agree with it as well. There's nothing wrong with having accuracy with the hole cracker, but a lot of people are devastated about this because, it's making the takedown sequences a lot harder and longer, especially if you're coming in with less players and you don't have like a group of 10 plus solos all firing at this thing. It makes it kind of a nightmare to go ahead and take on a lot of these big boys now. And as I stated, I guess that shouldn't be a complete bad thing. But at the same time, I think they might have went a bit overboard. They did what I thought they were going to do to the Venator, absolutely destroy it. But instead, they did it to the hole cracker as well. And let's be honest here, I think the hole cracker should do a decent amount of damage. It's called the hole cracker for a reason, man. It's a beefy boy gun, It's no joke, and I feel like something like this should definitely have some damage. If they want to reduce the damage a little bit, that's fine, but I feel like the blast radius shouldn't be completely destroyed, making you have to, pinpoint every single shot that you take to make sure that you do maximum damage. I don't know what the middle ground will be here, but all I'm seeing online right now is how bad this nerf is to their overall experience. And I haven't gone out with the Hole Cracker and tried it myself. I've been mostly focusing on the Venator and trying to get as much PvP as possible because, you know, as I stated, this is probably my biggest problem is the Venator. When it comes down to taking down the big boys, I believe numbers will always, you know, solve everything. But if you're going in as a trio, it's harder to do trios, taking down, you know, again, the matriarch, the queen, because not many trios work together. Usually it's just one team trying to take it down and everybody else trying to backstab, or maybe if you're lucky, you can get another 3 stack of players, but other than that, it's very rare to see, like, you know, 10 plus players who are coming in squads working together to take something down. Usually you'll see that in solos. So for me, I don't have a problem because I don't think I've ever played squads yet. I played it back in the beta, but I've been solo only when it comes to the full launch of the game. So for me, it's not that big of a deal because I know there's going to be a bunch of people there who are ready to, you know, work together, get some teamwork in, and take it down. But for squads, I feel like it's going to be much more noticeable because you're not going to have that many players, and you're going to definitely see a decrease in damage, and it's killing a lot of people's time. So I'm hoping they can find a middle ground for this. You know, I hope that they can go back to the drawing board a bit and see if they can rework the Hole Cracker to make sure that it could still give us that adrenaline rush and that, you know, burst of satisfaction of using a high-powered explosive weapon against these big boy arcs, while at the same time not making it to where you can just, you know, single-handedly go in with the Hole Cracker and destroy everything in the lobby. And I think that's where they're trying to fine-tune everything. Because yes, even with the Hole Cracker before they nerfed it, it's kind of hard to take down the matriarch or the queen, any of them if you're alone, you know? But when you're alone and you're going against a bastion or, you know, and any of the other ones, it's not that hard, actually, if you're a solo player. And I think that's where they're trying to find the balance between the medium arcs and the massive arcs, you know, and the small arcs aren't really affected by any of this. But overall, ladies and gentlemen, let me know down in the comment section what you guys think. Have you tried out the Venator? Do you think it's better? Do you think it's worse? And also, what I'm really curious about, because as I said, I didn't get much testing in, I want to know what you guys think about the Hole Cracker. Do you agree with a lot of people online that it got absolutely destroyed and there's no point in using it anymore? Or do you think that they might be overreacting and it still is pretty useful? To me, as I stated, I see a lot more negativity than I see positivity. So I think at some point in time, Embark is going to have to revisit it and do a little work because I think they can, indeed, as I stated, find a middle ground. But ladies and gentlemen, as always, if you enjoyed today's video, leave a like. If you hate it, leave a dislike. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. Post twice here, once at 8 a.m. Eastern Time and a second time at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And also, if you guys are interested in my live streams, I do stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, if you guys are interested, go link that channel down in the description of this video. But as always, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you all on the next one. Peace out.